Hello my quilting friends! My name is Leah Day. Today I am making a big change to my long arm. I am adding automation. And basically what this is going to do, I'm going to be adding a motor to my carriage, drive belts to my frame, and a tablet here on my long arm. And the software on the tablet is now going to steer the machine. I know, this is really exciting. And the way I'm thinking of this, at least, is turning my long arm into kind of like an embroidery machine where I program in a design and then it's going to stitch it for me. So this is really exciting in a whole totally different area of machine quilting that I've never really tried before. Now, to get started here, I have already done a little bit of prep work. I've removed all of the rails. As you can see, there would be a rail going right through me right here. So I've removed the front, the two front rails and the back rail. And then I've also removed my encoders. And this is always good to do as the very first step of any remodel on your long arm. If you're going to be moving your long arm and taking it off the frame, always take your encoders off first and put them safely away in the corner of the room where they're not going to get bumped or jostled. So the first step is to attach our motor to the carriage. And this was something that I messed up the first time I set up my frame. I had the front flipped around. And so here's how you can tell the front from the back of your carriage. The front is the side with the black rubber. It's a vibration damper, and you have thicker bolts here on the front. The back is a metal base, and you have these wider nuts that attach it. So that is the difference between the front and the back of your carriage. You want it facing like this. And I have locked my channel locks here. I've got this channel lock still attached, and I've locked that down just so that way the carriage doesn't roll around on me. Okay, so this is the motor, and the cord comes out the back. So that's what I'm using as my kind of gauge to see which way this goes. So I'm going to pick it up and turn it over and place it just like this on the frame, on the carriage. And I'm going to take this to finger tight, intentionally first. And finger tight means, I'm not really cranking down on it. And then after I get all of the screws in position, then I'll tighten this up nicely. Now the next step is to attach the power strip. I'm going to have the switch on this side, and I also centered up this motor, made sure it was nicely centered in the carriage, and then I tightened up all those bolts as well. I'm going to unplug this and plug it in right there on the strip. There we go. That looks good. So this next step of the build has to do with attaching the short timing belt, that's what this is properly called, the timing belt, to a bar that's going to go underneath your long arm. And this is what's going to position your long arm forward and back, move it basically this way on the frame. So when you unroll your belt, this short belt, you're going to find that the center part is really super curled, as you can see. So this is where you want to start. So we're going to take this, and these brackets come taped together, so it's really clear how it goes. It was taped together just exactly like this. So you want to keep it taped until the very last second, then untape it, and then we're going to take the belt and lock it in here. So I'm just going to place it so that the teeth are against those grooves in that bracket, just like so, and lock that together. Okay, now I'm going to take the end of my top belt bracket, and this is something that was a little confusing, so I took my time reading the instructions, and this is actually different depending on the long arm that you're attaching it to. So if you were attaching to the QCT 15 or 19 inch, you're going to have it positioned this way, and the way you can tell the side is you can see the bar is almost flush with this end of the bracket here, and then you've got about 1/4 inch of space up here. And unfortunately, this is one of those situations where I think they just missed putting a sticker on here. It's supposed to say A and B, and this is missing. So I really had to look at it and pay attention. So I'm being very clear here in the video. You can look at the bracket and tell. So if you are putting this on a 15 or a 19 inch QCT, then this is how it's going to be positioned. And you're going to take this and attach it to the bottom here like so. If you are attaching to the 21 like me, this bar is going to rotate all the way around, and then now it's going to attach this way. So I'm going to continue on following the instructions for the 21, and that shows to attach the belt tensioner. So that's what this is. There's like a lip here. You can see there's these little prongs that protrude, and that is resting against the back of that bracket. Here I'm going to slot this back in, making sure it feels a little on the tight side. I think that's the way it's supposed to feel. I'm going to send that bolt through. There we go. And so the next step, it looks like, is to take off my thread stand. And the reason we're taking off the thread stand is because we're going to tilt the machine over to one side. So this is how the top belt bracket should look at this point. I've got my belt tensioner on this end. I've got the belt attached. So I'm cranking down on these pretty good. And you can see I've got this all the way as far back as it can go. My belt is going through like this. I've got my tensioner down here. I think this looks good. So the next step is to work with our long belt. So I'm going to take off the tape that is holding this together. And again, we want the most curly end, so that's going to be the part that's all the way down in the inside. So you can see the grooves here with the top of that belt bracket. That obviously slots just like so. And then I'm going to open this up, and it is showing the belt going this way with the teeth towards the bracket, just like so. That's what it's looking like. So if I was holding my long arm and steering it around from the front handlebars, then this would be the left side of the frame. So that is the left side, and now I'm going to go over to the right side of the frame and attach the second bracket. So there we go. That looks great. And now this is going to go on the right side of the frame. And now the instructions say to tilt the frame on the carriage on its side. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to hold this up. So from how it looks in the instructions, I'm supposed to go through here. And I'm going off of that big gear being right there and these two gray rollers. So that looks right to me. I'm going to send this straight up and through to the other side. And then the instructions say to thread it back down to the back of the carriage. And you can see there is a little gear here that is black, and it has grooves to match with the grooves on this belt, so that I can roll this back and forth, and I can see the gear here moving with the belt. And it's a really nice smooth movement. Okay, so I have my QCT 21 put back on the carriage, and my husband helped me put it back in place. And this is a note: you have to have a helper to get your long arm off the carriage and then back on it. It is just awkward to try and get it on and off. The belt is groove side up or smooth side down. I'm going to snake this between the wheels, send it through. And I'm going to move my long arm so that way this is centered up nicely and you can easily see. So I'm going to roll this forward so that this area where I have two gray rollers right here is kind of centered up right between these two legs. And then I'm going to lock my channel locks here so that way the machine stops moving. There's the first gray wheel, and I am slotting it down into the hole to the right of that gray wheel. So slotting it down, tucking it through, and then it's going to come out, you can see, right there. Okay, so then now I'm going to take it with my fingertips, I'm just curling it back. I've rotated that through. It's now coming up through that next section, and here let me wiggle it back and forth and you can see. So where it's going to come through, you've got a second roller, and it's going to come through on the right side of that second roller. Okay, so the next step of the instructions is to feed the belt into the belt tensioner. So this needs to be loosened up so that way this part will spin, and that sends the belt up through that area. So I get excess belt coming out through here. This is going to put tension on the belt. Now the next step is to get this long belt nice and straight and taut to the frame. And this is the thing about the continuum frame. is that this bracket is just designed to kind of float here. So the way to find out where it's supposed to go and tighten down is to slide the machine back and roll it back and forth, and also take up the extra slack that is in the belt. And then I'm going to feed it through that slot at the top of this bracket. And again, this was where I found a little bit of confusion. This side, this right hand side, is what you turn to feed the belt through, and it's actually coming through here on the end. So I'm just going to keep turning that. And this is loose. This is really loosey-goosey, so that way it's got a nice bit of play and movement in it, so that way it can turn. And make sure the bracket itself is nice and square to the frame and tight to this side. And I'm going to tighten this down on this side. I'm kind of siding down that belt. It looks nice and straight. When I look straight over, it is lined up nice and straight with a line on my ruler. So that is looking really good. I'm not seeing any sort of like bow or skew, and I've gotten my face really close down here. So this looks good. I mean, I maybe adjust it just a smidgen down. I think that's good though. So I'm going to tighten these set screws too, and then I'll just play around and test a bit, and I think we're ready to go. The next step is to attach the holder for your tablet for running the QCT software. So on the 21, I'm going to remove this little plate right here. Now this is going to be very, very different depending on the long arm that you have. So I noticed that the instructions for the 19 and the 15 were very, very different. So make sure to refer to your manual carefully, follow those instructions in order to do your wiring. So I'm going to use this bracket for the 21. These were all very clearly labeled. And just in case you ever switch machines, like you're starting on a 15 or a 19, and you have all these extra brackets, put it all in a box, seal it up. You never know, you might change machines and you'll want that other bracket. So here is the back of the tablet holder, and there are 3 screws on both sides you'll want to loosen up, and the ones on the far end adjust how these grippy things are positioned, so up or down, and then these screws here adjust how wide it is. And you want to go on ahead and do this on your table or on the ground or somewhere not on the long arm, because of course adjusting this and trying to hold your tablet all at the same time is kind of a recipe for dropping your tablet on the floor. So here we go. I'm going to slot my tablet in, and as far as the tablet goes, it has to be a Windows-based tablet. You can't use an iPad for this software, and I have shared a link. It is an affiliate link to the tablet that I am using, so if you want to get the same tablet, you can. Okay, check that one more time. Make sure it slots in easily, because obviously, you know, it's probably not going to be on the long arm all the time, and now that I've tightened that up, you can see it's not going, so I need to readjust one more time. Okay, I've got this all nicely adjusted, and now I'm ready to attach it to my long arm. You can see we've got the screw at the back. It is really wiggly wobbly, and that's the way it's designed, so that way you can adjust it and get it in exactly the right position. And we're going to attach it with this, this is a wing knob. Slot down my tablet. That still looks like a great fit. Love it. And then, you know, another thing to keep in mind too is you might have glare from your lights coming down, so that might be also a factor. Give this a tighten. And then of course, if you turn on your long arm and this is rattling around, then you can always come back here and adjust these and tighten it up that much more. Before I took my long arm off of the carriage, I removed both the side and carriage encoders. And I always do that anytime I move my long arm, because of course it's very easy to set this down on the ground and set it down on the encoder, which is a very breakable part. So I removed those. Throughout that process, while I was getting the belts adjusted, I put the wheel back on using the original bolt that attached it. And then just now, I reattached my encoder and screwed both of those back in. So I think that's a good time to go in and get that reset. And then now is the time that we do electrical stuff. Now, this is again very specific information for the QCT 21. This is going to be different for the 15 or the 19, so keep that in mind. And so on the right-hand side underneath is the kind of computer box where you're going to have a lot of plugins down here. So on the far left side is a connection for this cable. So I'm going to pop this in. So I inserted that there, and I do find that that's a very tight connection. So once I get that locked in place, it really wants to stay there. Okay, so then now back here on the back of the QCT, we have a little silver plate right here, and there's a USB port right there. I'm going to pop that in just like so. All right, now the next one is our quilt motion cable. This looks like a a telephone cord, an old school telephone cord. So I'm going to untwist this. I don't think there's a right or wrong end. I think this will just lock in. And this is going to go on the far end port down here. And then it's going to plug in to the blue right here on the side. I think this is one of those things that you're going to have to play with. Keep rolling your machine back and forth and just see what works. And yeah, just keep playing until you find something that you're happy with. I think this looks pretty good. Our last cord to plug in is the male-to-male USB adapter. Open this one up. And this is why you need a full-size USB port on your tablet in order to run the software. So on this side, going to plug in just like so. I'll bring this around, and there is a USB port right here at the top of the machine. Just plug it in like that. Okay, so I plugged in the machine to the power strip at the back, and I plugged that into the wall, and then I heard a noise from the carriage, so it is definitely on and working. Okay, so very first thing, it says make sure the sewing machine needle is up and move the carriage to the center of the sewing area. So I'm going to do that before I hit OK. So, whoa, it is definitely moving. Okay, wow, this is cool. This is pretty exciting. Okay, guys, that's it for quilt motion, getting this set up on my QCT 21. So that's it for this video. I am super excited about this, and I'm really proud of myself because I do find that sometimes things like this can intimidate me, and I am very proud of the fact that I built this almost completely by myself. Josh helped me pick up the long arm and move it, but I pretty much did all of the fiddling and getting the belt in place and all of the electrical and all that good stuff all by myself. So I think this is something that pretty much anybody can do. Follow the instructions very carefully, very slowly, refer back to this video as much as you need to, and make it fun. You know, I split this across 2 days. I don't think that it's something you should rush or try and do when you're tired, because then it would be really easy to get things flipped around. Now, I ended up with a lot of leftover pieces. I think that is normal because, of course, there's different mounts for different machines. I would save all of those extra pieces in the box and make sure to store that somewhere where you remember where it is. So if you ever decide to change machines, if you go from a 15 to a 19 or a 19 to a 21, or however you decide to upgrade in the future, you have the brackets, you have the pieces that you need, and you know where they are. So I hope that you're as excited about giving quilt motion a try as I am. Come and check it out at leahday.com/QCT. That is Quilter's Creative Touch. So come and check that out, and until next time, let's go quilt.